Hi everyone, we are going to be talking about solving equations with variables on both sides, so go ahead and make sure you title your paper Solving Equations with Variables on Both Sides. We are first going to go over our steps on how to actually solve equations with variables on both sides, and let's begin with our step number 1. So our step number 1, we have to distribute if needed. So what that means by distributing if needed is that you're actually going to multiply all of your terms together. And you'll actually see this in an example when we do this. So multiply to all terms. Okay, and then our second step is to actually simplify each side of the equation. And what this means, another word that you guys might be used to, is actually combining like terms. Okay, and then our step number 3, we are now going to move all the variables terms. So move all variables terms to one side. And then our last step that we have is step number 4. We are going to, actually let me back up and show you guys an example of what we mean by moving all the variables terms to one side. So what we're actually going to see is this is where you will be adding or subtracting the variables. Okay, now we're ready for step number 4, and this is actually our final step. You are now going to solve the remaining 2-step equations. So then we're right back to where our notes were from yesterday. Okay, so we're going to go ahead and after you write solve the remaining 2-step equation, which means that you're going to be adding and subtracting first, and then you will end up going to dividing at the end if you need to. So we're going to go ahead and go on to an example. Our first example we are going to try is 5y. Let's title this example number 1. And we have 5y minus 8 equals 3y plus 12. Okay, so if we look at our first step, it says to distribute if needed. Well, we don't have anything in parentheses, and so that means that we will not be distributing. So our second step says to simplify each side of the equation, meaning we need to combine like terms. Well, we don't have any like terms on, if you just look at your left side over here, we don't have any other y values to combine with that 5y. And then if you look on the right side, we also don't have any y values to combine with that 3y. So and our numbers are already combined, so we don't have any like terms to be combining either. So if we go to it, we have to actually skip all the way to our step 3. So we're going to move all the variable terms to one side. So you can either subtract the 5y or you can subtract the 3y. I'm going to start with the 3y because I would like to have a positive number that was just left over. So now I have 5 minus 3. Make sure you guys are bringing the y over as well. It's the whole point of getting your variables. So now I have 2y left over. And I still have a negative 8 equals, these were able to cancel each other out, and I have a positive 12. Okay, so now my last step is to go now to the remaining 2-step equation. So yesterday we learned how to actually get rid of the numbers away from the variable. So this number right here is our number that is not attached to the variable, so we're going to get rid of that first. So I'm going to go ahead and add 8 to both sides, and then we are left with a 2y equals, because those were able to cancel each other out, and then 12 plus 8 is 20. And then our last step in our second solving a 2-step equation was to divide. So now I'm going to go ahead and divide both sides by the 2 because that's what's multiplying the y by. And then when I actually have 2 divided by 2, that's just our single y now. And then 20 divided by 2 is now 10. Okay, so that's solving our first one. We're going to go ahead and do a little bit harder of an example on example number 2. Okay, so our example, this is actually going to use all of our steps that we just wrote down. So if you look back on your notes, the first step is to distribute. And this is where we now are able to distribute, and we have to now distribute this 5 to all the terms inside those parentheses. So when you're distributing, you are multiplying. So 5 times m is 5m. 5 times 3 is 15, and it's a positive 15 because we have that positive there, and they're both positive. And then we don't distribute that 5 to this 7m, so now we just rewrite that 7m. And then equals, and we will be distributing this 3 to all the terms inside those parentheses as well. So 3 times m is 3m, and 3 times negative 10 is a negative 30. Okay, so we have distributed. Our second step in your notes is to actually combine like terms. So again, that's where I check on each side of my equation sign and I see, okay, do I have any things I can combine? Oh, I actually do. I can combine this 5m with this 7m. So I'm going to go ahead and do that. So 5 plus 7 is 12. So now I have a 12m. And then I still have that 15 on that side that I did not get to combine like terms with yet. Then we have the 3m minus 30. I still don't have anything on that right side to combine with because I had no more m's or no more numbers by themselves to combine. So now I'm where we actually left off on our example number 1. I'm going to now work with our variables. I want to try and get them to one side. So I'm going to go ahead and subtract the lower one because I want to try and have positives. You guys could totally subtract a negative or the 12, but you'll have a negative m's left over, which is fine and it will turn out the same answer. So now 12 minus 3 is 9m. I still have this 15 over here that I need to keep, and then these actually cancel each other out and we're left with negative 30. Awesome. Now I have all of my variables by themselves, and now I just need to get rid of my numbers. This is where you're going to be doing your two-step equations, where we get rid of the number that's not attached to the variable, and we are now subtracting the 15 from both sides because it was a positive. Now I'm left with 9m, those cancel each other out, equals negative 30, and we're actually adding 15 more negatives to it. Since they're both negative, a negative plus a negative, you're going to keep the sign and you actually add them. So we ended up doing 0 plus 5 is 5, and 3 plus 1 is 4, and that negative we have to keep. Okay. So for our last step, we now need to divide. M is being multiplied by 9, so now we divide by 9. And I am left with m equals negative divided by positive is going to be a negative, and 9 goes into 45 5 times. So my final solution here is m equals a negative 5. Alright, you guys go ahead and rewind that, copy everything down, and we will practice this stuff until you guys get it. Have a great day. I'll see you in class.